Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, hey, how you doing? Welcome into the program. We hope that you are having a wonderful day. Everything's going well, and hey, you're ready for some Computer America. Where today on the program, we have a fan favorite, and of course, a show favorite, Ralph Bond. He is our science and tech trends correspondent. He covers everything that is, well, science and techie. It's there's really not much lately that doesn't stick to that, or at least pertain to that particular topic, and especially with, pandemic going on. So there's a lot of advancements in technology and of course telemedicine and much of the like, but it's not going to be all just about the virus. Don't worry about that. I've heard a lot of people are getting really frustrated with that. Not so much that it's happening, obviously we're all frustrated that it's happening, but that everyone keeps talking about it. You need a distraction. You can't just sit there for months on end talking about the same thing over and over again and how awful it is. This is going to be the show to take your mind off that. Mostly, don't worry about it. We have a lot of variety in here. Some of it will pertain, but it's going to be hopeful and it's going to be good. So with that being said, Ralph's waiting in the wings oh so patiently. We'll get to him in just a moment, but computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including the show notes, which are going to be super important. Those will be up after the program. I'll try to get them up as fast as I can. I promise. And then, of course, you can also find articles, reviews, show notes, podcasts, all that and more. And of course, find us on social media, blah, blah, blah. But now let's go ahead, bring Ralph on and just have fun with it. And Ralph, I actually muted you up. So if you'd like to unmute you, or I can do it myself. You're
all right
there. Ralph, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. And you're so right. I think if I hear coronavirus one more time, I'm just going to explode. But we're going to do it. First three stories. Well, get three right.
Right.
1, 2, 3. Well, first three stories will be coronavirus related. But then, as you pointed out, we'll have some other general technology and science trend stories to share. So bear with us on those first three. And they are hopeful stories.
That's all. And hey, that's all we can, hope for. So with that being said, and of course, if you don't know Ralph's background, highly encourage you to go check out his website. There will be a link to that in the show notes, with his full, kind of bio and things like that. But, more than your background, Ralph, just talk about what it is you try to accomplish here on the program.
Yeah. Well, each month when I'm on the show, I try to share exciting and interesting technology and science trend stories that kind of float usually under the radar of the mainstream press awareness. Of course, the mainstream press doesn't cover science and technology as much as you and I would probably hope, but it's a fun way to look for things that are really adventurous, things that really kind of give us a forecast of where we're going with technology and science, but also sometimes things that are kind of on the goofy edge, kind of on the wackadoodle edge sometimes. And it's so much fun. And when you see and hear the headlines of the stories that I pick up from different sources, you'll realize why I just couldn't resist them.
Yeah, it's not often that we get to talk about, on a day-to-day basis about, self-healing concrete and
Yes.
Stuff like that. That it is going to make a difference in people's lives. It's just right now it's a lot of research, a lot of development, but of course a lot of very interesting stories. So
Yeah.
And like I said before, in the show notes, if you're listening to this time shifted, if you're watching the video portion, if you're listening to us on the radio, we appreciate that. We love that you do that. But for people who are time shifted, the show notes will be up, and you can catch all the links, videos, and all that more. So with that being said, I think that's enough prattling and going on. Let's go ahead and get to the stories. And hey, let's start with story number 1.
Okay, here we go. So here's a great example. Again, 3 stories dealing with coronavirus. Again, all positive and upbeat. And then we'll go on to some other stuff. But the first one I picked up from CNET, a story by Brian Cooley. Headline, Coronavirus Sensor you can stick at the top of your chest that tracks symptoms. Oh, okay. So we all know that contact tracing is a big topic these days, but also monitoring symptoms, whether you're an identified coronavirus patient or whether you're potentially that or whatever. But imagine something the size of a small Band-Aid you could put at the base of your throat that could help monitor for potential symptoms, rather.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into the story. And also, friends, what I do is I kind of do greatest hits of stories. I don't read the entire article. I extract the key points and so forth. But with the links in the show notes that Ben mentioned, you can always get the whole story and all the links that are embedded those stories as well. So here we go. So what if you could stick a flexible wireless sensor about the size of a small Band-Aid at the base of your throat that could monitor you for coughing and breathing problems associated with COVID-19? Pretty cool. That's exactly what a team of researchers at Northwestern University and the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab announced earlier this month. Now, it's designed to adhere to the skin at the base of your throat where airflow is closest to the skin. And the small patch can monitor early signs of coronavirus infection and the progression of the illness. Here's a fun fact.
Yeah.
What the team did, the team took a monitoring device originally designed to monitor speech and swallowing in recovering stroke patients. So I love this kind of thing where they said, well, we've got this technology, and someone along the line, light bulb went off, and they said, hey, maybe we could repurpose it for this. And exactly what they did. So the researchers took the device's design, modified it to track coughing and breathing problems that characterize COVID-19 symptoms. And here's how it works. Oh yeah, it's a great example of repurposing something they already had. So here's how it works. Inside the patch is a high bandwidth tri-axis accelerometer to measure movement of the surface of the skin. Its job is to capture details of breathing and coughing, not unlike what a digital stethoscope can do. And of course, Ben, you know what an accelerometer is, but just for the general audience here, maybe that might not know, here's a little side note. And accelerometers are one of your smartphone. Let's just use a smartphone as an example, has an accelerometer. So in your smartphone, that's one of the most important sensors. It manages things like switching apps from portrait to landscape mode or from driving apps to displaying your current speed. The accelerometer in your phone, using that example, is basically a sensor which helps in detecting the force of your smartphone in a particular direction over 3 axes. So that's what it is, right? It has to do with that motion thing. I guess the simplest thing is when you turn your phone from portrait mode to horizontal mode and so forth, landscape mode. So that's what we're talking about with this accelerometer that's inside this patch.
Right.
Now, in addition, the patch also detects heart rate and temperature. Obviously, those are key things the healthcare providers want to monitor in a patient as well. Now, I love this next part. Once a day, you peel off the little Band-Aid light sticker and place it on a wireless charger, which triggers the patch to sync its stored data with a nearby iPad. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then from there, the data is uploaded to a cloud based system designed to securely manage your personal data in compliance with government health record protection regulations. The acronym is HIPAA. You can look that up if you're interested. The article will have more references to that.
Right.
Now, once the data,
and sorry to jump in here, but
yeah.
I just want to mention that I have noticed, at least for the last couple of years, that sensors are being embedded into everything. And it's very cool that they're able to get into a patch. I actually went online because I figured, how do people who need accelerometers, how do they get them? Turns out they just kind of Google them, and I Googled this one. And they have some, even from like Bosch and NXP and a couple of these places, that cost about like 56 cents a piece. And you can order about 10,000 at a time.
Wow.
These things are like sensors that are so accurate are so inexpensive, and that's awesome.
And that's encouraging too, because you'll see at the end of the story, one of the goals, of course, is to go into mass production. So if that key element of this thing is so low cost, as you just did the research for us, thank you for doing that. It's very promising, very encouraging. So as I mentioned before, or to pick up, once the data is in the cloud, a proprietary artificial intelligence algorithm looks for anomalies in the patient related to COVID-19. So looking for signals or indicators that might suggest this person has contracted the virus. Now, since the device uses a wireless charging design, I love this, and as a result has no external ports for power or connectivity, it can be easily ding, 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 disinfected and used over and over. Gotta love that, right? Mm-hmm. And to wrap things up here, at a lab at Northwestern's Chicago campus is now producing dozens of patches a week, with 25 volunteers currently using the patch to continue testing. And they have the ability, and your research was wonderful, you just did on the fly, they have the ability to scale to hundreds of devices a week before making the patch available for volume manufacturing via license. So we talk about contact tracing. You keep hearing about that a lot. What if you could give a population of a town like where I live is about 100,000 people. What if somehow you could, everybody, if they're willing to do it, wear a little patch on the base of their throat that could help monitor your symptoms or potential symptoms? Talk about contact tracing. Wow. I mean, this could be revolutionary. Of course, again, would you be willing to wear the thing?
And so a couple things that kind of leap to mind here. The first one is, Ralph, I'm actually interested. Where did you hear about contact tracing? Because that was actually a topic on the show yesterday. But other than Computer America, where have you been hearing it? Because
all over the place. To be honest with you, all over. At least in the media,
like news articles and television.
And television. Yeah, CNN, MSNBC, and so forth. Contact tracing. If you get into the news shows that special, instead of just your nightly news on NBC or ABC or what have you, get into the shows that are 24/7 news cycle like CNN and that sort of thing, Fox News, you pick your outlet. Contact tracing has been one of the things, as you know, Ben, that has been identified as a key thing we should or must do in order to be able to open up our businesses in a responsible way. So if we can monitor people who have symptoms and then monitor who they've been in contact with and alert them accordingly so they can take the appropriate corrective actions or preventative actions, on and on and on. It's just a key element in moving through these phases that you keep hearing about that gradually enable us to open up our business community.
Right. And I was actually curious because, and this is going to be a deviation, but then we'll get back to the story real quick. But how do you feel about contact tracing?
It's...
Personally, this is Ralph's opinion, but
I've been kind of on a teeter-totter of it, sort of. I appreciate people's concerns about personal data being revealed. The contact tracing schemes that I've been hearing about in the works, and some have been initially deployed, always claim and tell the users, your name, your address is not going to be divulged, but the fact that someone who's come into contact with you will be alerted that you have come into contact with someone now we've identified as having COVID-19.
Right.
And they claim that's it. It's not going to be Ralph Bond. He's the guy that exposed you. And, so it's not that kind of a thing.
Right.
And, Ben, I'll segue just for a moment too. This has been on my mind a lot. not to go down sort of a mainstream media
Please
debate situation, but I've been thinking, what a terrible fork in the road we're at right now. And technology is part of this story too. I think we need every ounce of technology we can get to help us responsibly monitor and manage exposure. And at the same time, though, does that mean we keep hiding in our homes and nobody goes back to work? No, I think we have to find some kind of balance where if we can just use technology and use masks and use whatever it takes so that we can get as many people back to work as possible in its most responsible way we can, then please let's use these patches. Let's use any technology we can get to help us get there, because we can't go on forever with the shutdown of our whole industries, right? Look what's happening to the airlines industry. Look what's happening to the restaurant industry. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I'll get off that soapbox, but that's been something that's been on my mind.
And it's something that contact tracing, we looked into it, and actually yesterday on the show with Mike Cermak, another correspondent, we kind of went how they try to make it as anonymous as possible, and it involves keys and, that, and essentially, contact tracing it to a whole extent that actually made me a little more comfortable with it. Like my immediate reaction was, I'm totally not comfortable with this kind of thing. Yeah. But after hearing about it, I'm like, at least the approach that Google and Apple are taking is something that can happen. So you're right. COVID-19 is, there's a lot of solutions. And of course, like the article going back to it, this particular one is probably more for identifying risk cases where, you combine it with a number of things, and this will be just another indicator that, and by the way, as someone who's overweight, let's just put it that way. As someone who's overweight, I don't really have the best like little well that they're talking about right there at the base of your neck. Yeah, it's full of other stuff. So it's I'm questioning, just personally, and hey, I'm in good company. They're like 55-60% of the United States is overweight as well. I'm questioning on the effectiveness on if it's like, I get that it would track coughing because the accelerometer would catch the cough. I'm wondering if it's less or more effective on an obese nation than it wouldn't be otherwise.
That's a great question. I suppose one would like to think, based on your comment, that the 25 volunteers working on this right now who are wearing the patch to help them fine-tune it represent a variety of body types. Let's just hope that's the case, because you make an excellent point.
There's that. And then, of course, through all the news coverage that we have been seeing about this whole thing, there's, of course, the fact that, symptoms like coughing and sneezing for COVID-19 don't happen for days after. This would probably be more like, oh, you started showing symptoms, now we do the contact tracing because you probably have it due to this patch, we would detect it after. So it's not really like a preventative thing, but like you said, one more way.
It's monitoring. It's a monitoring tool.
One more. And of course, when you tell people, hey, we're going to monitor you with the patch, again, a whole nother slew of, privacy conscious people. But with that being said, the way that they're able to use a sensor, and it's better than shoving a Q-tip into your brain. It's better than, testing swabs and blood tests and kits and that kind of thing. It's another approach. And I find novel approaches very interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
So definitely like that. And hey, there's going to be a lot of time to test stuff like this out. So there you go.
Yep.
Story number 2. I thought that the folks over at in Boston Dynamics, there it goes right there in the title, who make this thing would be, kind of hiding away. But no, they're taking their research and doing something with it.
Yeah, this is a great story from Good Old Engadget, story by Christine Fisher. And if you're not familiar with Boston Dynamics, Ben and I are very, very familiar with them. Run, don't walk to your browser and just type in Boston Dynamics robotics. But again, the main thing is Boston Dynamics. And they make a variety of humanoid-like robots, but also probably their most famous robot is Spot, the robot dog. Yep. And if you haven't seen, the YouTube is loaded with tons of videos of these robots doing things individually or in groups or packs. I mean, it is spooky, weird stuff, but fascinating and fun. So that's what we're talking about here. What is happening is Boston Dynamics is retrofitting or modifying their dog spot robots to help healthcare workers. And let's get into the story and explain how this works out. So again, as I just mentioned, they're retrofitting these dog-like robots to help healthcare workers. So late last month, Boston Dynamics announced a trial effort using its Spot robots at Boston's Brigham and Women's Hospital to enable healthcare providers to remotely examine and evaluate coronavirus patients. I think you can already start seeing the wheels turning in your head about how this could be so helpful. So Boston Dynamics solution mounts an iPad and a two-way radio to the front of the Spot robot. And if you see the picture that Ben's showing up on the screen right now, it's almost kind of spooky because you can see the nurse or the doctor, whatever the case may be, shown on the screen of the iPad,
Right.
doing a two-way communication. So healthcare workers can guide the robots through tents where patients suspected of having COVID-19 are given an initial assessment. Doctors and nurses can speak to, see, and hear the patients from a safe distance, and maybe even from their homes or some other remote site. This is the beauty of this. And here's the obvious motive here. Every shift completed by a Spot robot reduces exposure, first and foremost, for one healthcare worker, thus conserving a limited supply of personal protective equipment. So there's a double benefit, right? And Boston Dynamics says it still needs to figure out how to remotely collect vital sign information such as body temperature, respiratory rate, pulse rate, and oxygen saturation. But it's an interesting way to use this technology for this examination stage and to reduce the need for the workers to expose and or use up precious PPE equipment. And then there's the last little bit that they mentioned in the article, which I thought was really clever. They're also looking at how they might attach a UVC light or other technology to the robot's back that would allow the robot to run around and kill virus particles and disinfect surfaces in spaces like hospital tents, hospital rooms, public spaces. You can imagine all kinds of possibilities, metro stations, you name it. So how cool is this that they thought, wait a minute, our robot dogs could help out with this battle against the coronavirus? I love this story.
Yeah, again, it's using robotics, and I guess there's really no wrong answers when we're facing something, kind of this all encompassing. Ralph, we have talked about robotics being used in healthcare for
Yep.
a number of years, especially in Japan, where it's not even about healthcare, but care for the elderly and things like that. Robotics are going to serve a place. Boston Dynamic, I think, is head and shoulders above a lot of other companies that try to provide robotics for this kind of thing. So, how many times, Ralph, have we talked about robotics robotics in search and rescue and things like that?
Yep. And here, we need to be rescued from the coronavirus. So I'm all for it.
And searching for coronavirus. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a very interesting time that. Like I said before, there's like almost no wrong answers for how we can utilize technology in doing this.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
Story number 3, we'll go ahead and wrap this up and move on to other topics. But story number 3, let's do it.
Yeah, this is fun. So last month, you may recall, we talked about MIT's recipe for a very low cost emergency fallback ventilator for healthcare workers, right? Genius little plan, and so forth and so on. Exactly. So this headline caught my eye from TechCrunch, a story by Daryl Etherton, and the headline is FDA authorizes a ventilator developed by NASA's JPL for emergency use in COVID-19 treatment. So it shows you how many different researchers and brains out there are looking for how can we help? How can we help? And this one's particularly cool, I think. So now NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, that's what JPL stands for, is offering its design for an emergency backup ventilator that was approved late last month by the Food and Drug Administration. So there's a key, approved. The ventilator design is being offered for free, licensed use for the duration of the coronavirus crisis. So they're not looking to make money from this. This is a gift to the world. And here's a fun factoid. Developed in just 37 days, the JPL ventilator is an intubation ventilator. And friends, that means the patient has to be sedated with a breathing tube inserted all the way down into their airway to help with breathing. So this is meant for seriously ill COVID-19 patients in situations where there aren't enough of the high cost ventilators to go around. And this could step in and fill the gap as a makeshift solution. And it's intended only for COVID-19 patients exhibiting the most serious symptoms, as I alluded to just a moment ago. Now, the idea is to use the JPL ventilator to help free up the availability of existing fully approved ventilator hardware in the case of extreme shortages, as again, we mentioned before. But here's what makes the JPL ventilator most interesting. First, it's made of far fewer parts than existing traditional ventilators that you may now have seen on TV in news stories about the coronavirus patients in hospitals, right? And it can be assembled much more quickly, and it can be maintained with much less expertise. So the big fancy ventilators in hospitals require people trained to really know how to operate them and maintain them, right? This is much simpler. Now, reality check time. JPL's ventilator is designed for short-term use, really meant to be used for maybe 3 or 4 months, as compared to years of usefulness with traditional sophisticated ventilators that cost $30,000 each or more.
Yeah.
And the next step is NASA's JPL is seeking commercial manufacturing partners for the hardware now that it has FDA authorization. So hope, keep your fingers crossed. Progress is happening.
Okay, so let me see if I can do this without copyright strikes and that kind of thing. And this is a joke, so let's see if we can do this. But I think I actually have a video clip of them developing this, over at NASA, and very, very cool that we're able to get this. So let's. Oh no! Okay, wait. We're gonna mute this. Try to refresh. Actually, I got it. So for those of you who don't know, this is. Oh, why was it playing here but not there? I am so mad. It was a clip from the Apollo 13, and it had to do with it was a clip of Apollo 13, and they dump all the parts out onto the table. It's like, here's what we have to work with. I feel like that was what they did to develop this this ventilator.
Isn't that something? Yeah, that's funny.
I'm so.
You know what, Ben? It's like dogs and children never do the tricks when you ask them. It just doesn't happen.
Actually, I think I got it. So obviously no audio for certain reasons, but
where famous scene.
Yeah, where the gentleman says, how do we fit a square peg into a round hole, and all the parts come out on. It's like, hey, here's what we have to work with: duct tape and spacesuits and things like that. So
funny.
So, but hey, just a joke, just inside. I'm sure NASA put all the care and effort into this that they possibly could. So there you go. Story number 4, and this is one that we have been following very closely, and actually out at pretty much every CES since like 2015, 2016, since they first announced that they had a working quantum computer. IBM has been quick to roll out their quantum computer, and I'm always interested in updates, seeing where they've gone with it, how far they've come with developing these things. If you want a full breadth on just how fundamental a quantum computer will change, what it is that we do, we're not going to do that today. But we are going to explain how close we are and how much progress we've been making with quantum computers and IBM. So, story number 4, Ralph.
Yeah. So this comes from CNET, a story by Stefan Shankland, and the headline is IBM now has 18 quantum computers in its fleet of, I love this headline, fleet of weird machines. Well, okay. And so again, they have 18 computers now, an increase of 3 in just this quarter. That underscores IBM's effort to benefit from a revolutionary type of computing. And again, we won't go into all the details and tutorial about what quantum computing is. You can go out and research that.
They're fun, they're interesting, and it's going to be great. But
it's pretty fascinating stuff. So Dario Gil, head of IBM research and a champion of its quantum computing effort, disclosed the new number of 18 at the Big Blues Think conference on the 6th of May, so very recently. 18 quantum computers might not sound like a lot, but given that each one is an unwieldy device chilled within a fraction of a degree of above absolute zero and operated by PhD researchers, it's actually a pretty large fleet. And I think that was a helpful thing to kind of put this into perspective. It's why the world still has so few of these things. And I couldn't resist this. I'm adding a little verbal aside here, Ben.
Yeah.
For some of the folks in the audience, I thought to myself, I've heard about absolute zero, but what really is that?
Mm-hmm.
And so absolute zero is the lowest temperature that is theoretically possible, at which the motion of particles that constitutes heat would be minimal. It is zero on the Kelvin scale, or equivalent to minus 273.15 Celsius, or minus 459.67 Fahrenheit. So the absolute zero framework they're working with the IBM quantum computers is just slightly above absolute zero. And my brain just goes, what?
Well, yeah, and of course it's something that is it seems really hard to obtain, but we've been able to do for quite some time now, and absolute zero is very crucial for things like this. I'm going to throw a curveball, a verbal curveball at you.
Go
Ralph.
for it.
What is the temperature of absolute hot? Because that's absolute zero is of course how cold it can get at 0 degrees Kelvin. What is absolute heat? What's on the other end of the spectrum?
If I could Google fast enough to make it not look stupid, I'd do it. Go for it. Tell me, brother.
I Google for you. It's 2.55 times 10 to the 32nd power. That is the Planck temperature. There's also the Hagedorn temperature, which says it's 2 times 10 to the 12th Kelvin. But the point is, and like after that point, physics breaks down, which same thing for absolute zero. So there is a theoretical limit to both ends of the spectrum. Just a fun fact.
That is fun. That is kind of cool. Where does the surface of the sun stand in that spectrum?
Not even close. Not even close to the absolute heat.
Oh, ow.
It's super hot.
Well, that was fun. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now let's put the 18 quantum computers that IBM now has in perspective with other companies in this game, right? Mm-hmm. So in comparison, Google's quantum computers lab near Santa Barbara, California, has only 5 quantum computers right now. And Honeywell, we did a story on Honeywell in the last couple of months too, currently has 6. So Google has 5, Honeywell has 6, IBM has 18. That's pretty darn interesting. And the author of the article says quantum computer is no longer in its infancy, but it's probably only made it to early toddlerhood. It's an interesting comment.
That's just want to say real quick that lines up just about where the last time that we had an IBM researcher here on the show, they're saying that hey, when I asked them when can we expect these things, and even the researcher from IBM said, 20, 30 years was his optimistic approach to when these things are going to be, not really just functional because they're functional now, but relevant and useful. So, toddler infancy makes sense because 18, 20 years from now, hey, they might actually be a functioning adult computer.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the next line in the article caught my eye because it says the technology today remains exotic and expensive. That part certainly makes sense. But he goes on to say with largely unproven benefits. That I thought was kind of interesting because it's to my mind, you wouldn't think all these companies, IBM, et cetera, would be really diving into this if there wasn't some kind of proven benefit, maybe not fully expressed. To your point, it may take 20, 30 years, but I don't know, that struck me as an odd comment in a way. Mm-hmm. But another comment here, but companies like, be that as it may, companies like IBM, Google, Microsoft, Intel, and Honeywell, along with startups like IonQ, Quantum Circuits, Rigetti Computing, all of these guys are racing to bring quantum computing to maturity. And another thing that I thought was cool, it says here, their hope is to cash in on customers' desire to solve classes of computing problems that are impossible for conventional computers to tackle. There's a cool chart. You can take a look at it when you get to the show notes from IBM. That's kind of neat.
And sorry to rain on your parade a little bit. The chart, it just kind of goes like if you look at the axis, it goes from they had one back in 2016 that I heard about,
Right.
and now since 2016 they're up to 18. Like that's essentially what the graph shows is one.
Yeah,
to 18.
exactly.
So.
But the thing that's kind of fun is if you've got that much of a kind of a nice hockey stick upward direction.
Yeah, they have a huge slope.
If you
right
assume it continues to going, a year from now, maybe they'll have 40. So
unfortunately, coronavirus throws a wrench into everything. So maybe a little bend to that hockey stick that you don't want in a hockey stick. So
maybe. And then the next couple of points here, you're not likely to ever own your own quantum computer, of course, since they're so hard to operate, surrounded by hulking cooling equipment and isolated from outside interference that spoils with the calculations or the operation of these devices. Instead, I thought this was helpful from a perspective, and this is what Dr. Gill, who's head of the group, commented. Instead, you'll be able to tap into them via cloud computing services. And so far, 230,000 people have done so with IBM's Q experience.
I'm one of them. Yay.
Cool for you. Yeah, isn't that neat?
Yeah.
So I think the idea that these will be cloud-based things, because again, to maintain the super cool, literally cool temperature issue, as we discussed, would be so daunting for a normal server farm or something like that. But nonetheless, specialized server farms in the future.
Well, really, that's that's one of the hurdles that they really want to tackle over at IBM is that right now you need to operate them at near zero degrees to to get them to function. They're working on ways to get the electrons to flow the way that they want to, closer to room temperature. And I mean, like, even an increase of like 5% drastically reduces the cost of really running these things. So the ultimate goal is to find out a way to run quantum computers at room temperature, because then you negate all the need for the cooling system and so on and so forth. They're not there yet. They're working on that. And then the Q experience, I highly recommend. That's actually why we had IBM on the show. They were promoting their Q experience. If you want to run your own program, they have a quote unquote virtual quantum computer, and you can see the coding language, how it works, that kind of thing.
Wow.
And yeah, you can do it yourself. Ralph, to your point earlier about, why are they saying the unproven benefits? Why would they say something like that? Some of the, just a couple of months ago, we talked about Google, and they claim quantum superiority, that they created the first quantum computer that was able to solve a problem that a traditional computer was not able to. That was something that IBM had been working on for a while. And even then, Ralph, I don't know if you recall the story, but the story was something along the lines of, well, if the researchers had optimized the question for a traditional computer, Google said that it would have taken like 100,000 years for a traditional computer to solve this equation. Researchers were able to rephrase the question and get an answer in a matter of like, it was like a couple weeks, and then they were able to get down to a couple days. Don't get me wrong, still an incredibly long time for a supercomputer to crunch numbers, but it wasn't wholly impossible. So, the unproven part is that, well, Ralph, we don't have these things yet, so we are still, no one knows what these things can do yet, because we just don't have one. It's all theoretical.
Yeah. So. But I think the theory, if you will, the theories are pretty reasonable. We'll see.
for sure. And trust me, more to the point where you're not going to own one. Odds are you're not even going to play video games on these kinds of things. These are going to be for weather modeling, molecular modeling, things like that, coming up with cures and vaccines for diseases. It's something that the consumer will benefit greatly from when IBM or Google or Honeywell or Intel or any of these other companies finally get around to finally crack the code, if I can say that. So with that said, that's my long-winded response for that. Story number 5, and
yes,
this one's hopeful.
Yes, it is, and it's something I love stories that have to do with helping people with disabilities. As you know, people who've listened to us talk over the years know that that's one of the near and dear topics for me. So this is a story from CNET. That's where I started, an article by Sophia Fox Sowell. But then I also went to the creator of this product's website, Cool Blind Tech, run that all together, coolblindtech.com, and got some of their data. But the headline in the CNET story that Sophia did is this wearable device helps blind veterans see. Now, it could be used for people who aren't veterans as well, but you'll get the story here as we go along. And there's some great pictures here showing the device. So here we go. About 130,000 US veterans are legally blind. Now, friends, that doesn't mean they see nothing, but there are going to be gradations of it, right? And more than 1 million veterans live with low vision that causes a loss of ability and independence in performing necessary daily activities, not least of which may be having a job. So late last year, vision platform organization eSight announced the approval of eSight 3. So they've had previous generations of this technology for the VA Federal Supply Schedule. And that's a whole topic in its own right. This has to do with products that are approved by the VA for medical assistance and so forth. This is a milestone for the company's product, which was introduced first way back in 2017. So it's moved through iterations. Now we're at eSight 3. So the high-tech glasses, and if you have the photo, and Ben, you're showing some great illustrations here, the high-tech glasses have the ability to convert vision in the 2200 and 1200 ranges, really really terrible, right? To nearly 20/20 vision, according to the company. Now, the new eyewear technology is also wearable, hands-free, and portable, making it a one-of-a-kind, non-surgical product for individuals with conditions that cause severe vision loss. And here's how it works. A high-speed, high-resolution camera in the middle of the eSight electronic glasses captures what the user is looking at in real time. Then eSight's powerful computer instantly processes the high definition video and displays it on two OLED screens in front of the user's eyes using cutting edge optics. eSight's proprietary algorithms enhance the video feed. Full color video images can be clearly seen by the eSight user with unprecedented visual clarity and no perceptible latency or delay. That's a key factor, of course, you can imagine. With eSight's patented bioptic tilt capability, users can adjust the eyewear to the precise position that for them presents the best view of the video while maximizing outer peripheral vision, which is often still functional for people with low vision, right? So some people have straight on vision issues, but their peripheral vision is still pretty good. So that's what they're talking about. The bioptic tilt allows eSight users to be mobile while using the device. That's a key point. You can walk around and so forth. eSight users can easily control color, contrast, focus, brightness, and magnification up to 24 times using a sleek controller and intuitive user interface, so the company claims. Now, the company's medical devices typically cost about $6,000 each. Of course, that's a very steep ticket, right? Steep investment for veterans and other low vision individuals who may be living on a fixed income. But that's where subsidies and other things, of course, kick into the play. And that's what the last bullet here for us. The VA's Federal Supply Schedule program negotiates firm fixed pricing based on commercial most favored customer pricing concepts. So again, the idea is that, yeah, it's expensive and so forth, but maybe through other supplements and so forth and so on and negotiations, they can get it to a price that'll help it get deployed to as many of our veterans and other folks out there that need this help.
And really when when you think about it, the type of technology used to get this kind of benefit, Ralph, if I said, here's the problem, people have 1200 vision, which is Man, that is straight
Man.
up blindness. That is almost,
Terrible.
and of course, I guess that's an important part too, is that they can still technically see. It's things are very, very blurry and distorted and
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yes.
Like they're all the sensors and nerves, they also work. They're just working very, very poorly. Ralph, I mean, how would you go about this? And I'll give you just a little hint what I'm fishing for here.
Yeah.
It has to do with like cameras, right? Like cameras can solve that kind of zooming problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at the range of technology they're talking about in this device and in this solution, it's pretty compelling. I would love to talk to a user who's got a severe vision problem, who's using this and say, is it real? Is this really real?
Yeah, and of course on their website they show kind of use cases and people wearing them, which is part marketing, part really what it
Sure,
can do.
of course. Of course.
And I just got to think that if price is the main concern, I find it really hard to believe that they couldn't bring the price down, because this seems like something that would be very Ralph, we've talked about cameras with like well, I don't think we actually talked about the latest camera. I think it was like a Samsung camera that can actually zoom in 100 times.
Wow.
Magnification. And that's built into a camera, or I'm sorry, that's built into a phone camera. Something like this is something that, it has that bar across. The technology embedded within the headband, I'm sure that there's been a lot of research going into it. I just can't imagine it's going to be that expensive to scale it up and, bring the cost down. So
I think like everything, if you can get this in volume production and get the components down to, in volume, everything goes down in volume production, of course. So good stuff, fun, and something to think about.
I completely agree. So there's that one. And hey, another way that prosthetics and technology has definitely come a long way in this field. So story number 6, if ladies and gentlemen, if you're following along with the video portion, later on, find in the show notes. But story number 6 has to do with mind controlled prosthetics, the ultimate goal, that if you are missing something, we can replace it with something that works the exact same way. This is cool.
It's the second film in the first 3 of Star Wars, where Luke gets the
hand
replacement, the replacement hand. It's impossible. Anyway, but this story just made me immediately think of that iconic scene where he's getting his hand replaced, and in the forearm here, they open up the flap and they show all the gizmos doing their thing, and he's he's able to, they say, okay, move your hand and stuff, and he's able to do it at will because it's connected to his nervous system. So that's why it's germane to the topic here. So okay, this story comes from Silicon Republic, a story by Colm Gorey. Headline, and you can see why I jumped on this right away. Mind control prosthetic arm can now feel objects. What? I had to check it out. Very compelling image here that you've got on the show notes too, of an amputee who's got this forearm and so forth. And there's a video too. So here we go. Researchers from the Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden have published a study documenting a breakthrough in haptic feedback in a prosthetic arm. And there's more details here in the links in the show notes as well. Oh, yes, that wonderful scene from Star Wars. Thanks for
I had to bring it up. Yeah. Go ahead.
So it documented how 3 patients have lived for several years now with a mind-controlled prosthesis in their everyday life. For the last few years, this included the ability to feel objects through a prosthetic hand. Oh, this is great. This is a new concept for artificial limbs, referred to as neuromusculoskeletal prosthesis. I had to say that real slow on a Friday afternoon, as they are connected to the user's nerves, muscle, and skeleton. Oh, thanks. You've got the video going on there. And I just think it's just so inspiring. The ability to feel the sensation of touch is possible through stimulation of the nerves that used to be connected to a biological hand before amputation. Force sensors. This is interesting. Force sensors located in the thumb of the prosthesis measure contact and pressure applied to an object while grasping. This information is then transmitted to the patient's nerves, leading to their brains. The most important contribution of this study was to demonstrate that this new type of prosthesis is a clinically viable replacement for a lost arm. Hooray.
Yeah.
Clinically viable replacement for a lost arm. I love it. According to the lead researcher at the team, no matter how sophisticated a neural interface becomes, it can only deliver real benefits to patients if the connection between the patient and the prosthesis is safe and reliable in the long term. And what's great about this article, too, by the way, if you go and look at the link, it also starts looking at it, goes off and looks at some research that's going on at MIT that's related as well. So applause. I love it. Can you imagine? What if you had a child that, well, you know what? I just thought of this. What if your child were born, God forbid, maybe missing their forearm or something? You see these things on the television shows, like for St. Jude's, is it? Yeah, the Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if they can connect a device like this to one of these kids and connect it to the nerves and so forth. Wow. It seems to me like that would be terrific. So not only for amputees, but for people maybe who were born with, unfortunately, maybe a missing part of their forearm or something like that, to give them a functioning arm and hand would be fantastic.
So and we're not going to get into the topic because last time I did, I got a lot of angry comments, but I have heard a lot of talk about, humans are electrical beings and 5G and blah, blah, blah. Not going to talk about that, but I do have to say that we are electrical beings, and really,
yes, we are.
Kind of as you said with the story, that's how they're using, connected to the nerve, skeleton, muscle, essentially as the muscle contracts and decontracts, or not contracts, but whatever. As the muscle contracts, as the nerves send, electrical firings down them.
Yes.
That's what it's measuring. And those, those kids born with birth defects, they still have nerves. They're still perfectly functioning.
That's right.
Hey, that's what you need to hook up to it, and that's great.
I know, it's so promising.
Absolutely. So, because it's not just veterans, people are unfortunately dealt a very bad hand, coming into this world, and something like this could definitely help them. Now, Ralph, as is tradition, we have made it through, story number 6 out of about your, 14, 15?
10 or so, whatever.
13 different stories. I was interested in story, the last 10 minutes, we're going to cover these as best we can.
You bet.
And it was actually stories 8, 9, and 11. We'll take them at whatever speed you feel comfortable.
Sure.
But all 3 of these were, very interesting.
Really fun stuff. Okay, story 8, headline. This artificial intelligence creates entire songs, complete with music, lyrics, and vocals. It's a story from VentureBeat, a story by Kyle Wiggers. And this is a representation of a technology advancement, if you will, and interesting. It's not in the super serious helping handicapped people, no, but it's a little more on the fun side. But I thought it was very compelling. So let's get into this. OpenAI, so that's an outfit. Open and then AI run together as one word. OpenAI, on April the 30th, released a product called Jukebox, a machine learning framework that generates music, including rudimentary songs, as raw audio in a range of genres and musical styles. Now, bear with me. It'll make. In fact, if you have the show notes, you go out and you listen to the Alan Jackson.
I'm going to try to play one in the background, so I apologize if
go for it. Go for it. The Alan Jackson one is fantastic, I think. Provide the software with a genre, artist, and lyrics as input, and then the Jukebox app outputs a new music sample produced from scratch. The code and model are available. The code and model are available on GitHub, GitHub, along with a tool to explore generated samples. Jukebox might not be the most practical application of artificial intelligence and machine learning, but as OpenAI notes, that's the company that created this product, music generation pushes the boundaries of generative models. So if you're interested in generative design and artificial intelligence, particularly generative design as a subset of AI, the thought that music generation is one of the ways you really can push the envelope of that technology is a fun note. And then my note, check out the Alan Jackson country song created with this solution. I give the link to a SoundCloud thing. You're showing various SoundCloud, samples. A blast to listen to. And then the last bullet in the article or in my notes with a link is for a highly technical look at OpenAI's jukebox solution Go To, and I give you a link. So if you want to geek out, you can go down that road. But I just thought this was really clever, and it's the Alan Jackson one. See, I'm an Alan Jackson fan.
Me too.
That one's spooky. It's spooky cool.
But isn't that just the coolest thing? Is that like if one day, let's say Alan Jackson decides to stop making music for whatever reason, I don't know if he can, but there you go. What if it becomes something that, especially with artists like Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra, they had a number of different examples up there. Someone who has a very wide catalog. Alan Jackson's been making music for about 40, 50 years. So he has a very wide catalog.
Sure.
If for whatever reason he stops making music, but Ralph, you said, I want to hear some of his new stuff. What if you could use AI like this to generate new Alan Jackson that you've never heard of before?
And Ben, I'll tell you what, as we're speaking, the music lawyers are going, bring it on, lawsuit time. Here we go. Copyright infringement, whatever.
Really, this is the same copyright fight that they're going to have to take with, let's say, actually not too long ago, some movie said that they were going to superimpose some actor from like the 50s, and they were going to use him in a modern movie. And it's the same argument. It's like, they during Lord of the Rings, they took facial imaging of the actor that plays Gandalf, not Ian McKellen. Anyways, the actor that plays Gandalf. And now Hollywood's starting to do this where they insure and they take 3D scans so that if for whatever reason the star of their picture dies, they can they can finish the movie using artificial intelligence, 3D modeling, creating that kind of thing. Actors, musicians, that kind of thing. There may never really truly be an end to these people anymore because of this technology. It's spooky, but it's cool at the same time.
It is. It's one of those, it's a great comment. It's one of those things that's spooky and cool at the same time. One thing where you kind of hold your breath and go, ooh. On the other hand, you go, it's irresistible. We got to try it.
There may be another 100 years of Keanu Reeves in movies because, hey, they can scan him and put him into different things. So I think we have time for one more story, and I'll let you choose either 9 or 11. 9 is kind of funny to me because, let's go with 9. Yeah, the photo is someone about to just stomp furiously on their phone. But
it looks like that. Right. Yeah, so we'll stay on with the music theme. Story number 9, a company called Kovalu, that's Kovaluu, so Kovalu, has a product called Beats and Loops app for your smartphone, and it uses your phone as a virtual drum pedal. Okay, musicians, if you're out there, my son is a music producer, so he was very interested in this story. The source is notreble.com, a story by Kevin Johnson. Again, the photograph is fun. The links are all in the show notes. There's a video too, and that video was very, very interesting. I thought it was really cool. So a new musical app company called Kovalu recently released its first smartphone app called Beats and Loops, which combines a drum machine with a looper, with a track looper, right? If you think about rap music, a lot of times the underlying beats are just looped and looped and looped. Most interesting is its virtual pedal feature, which allows you to trigger the drum machine and loops with your foot. So let's say you're playing piano or guitar or whatever, but you could have your smartphone on the floor with the app happening, and you could use your motion of your foot to trigger activities. So the virtual pedal is used by placing the phone on the floor and swinging your foot a few inches above the display. It does so by utilizing your phone's proximity sensor that is ordinarily used to disable the phone screen when you hold it up to your ear during calls. Isn't that a clever reuse? You don't need to physically touch the phone to use the app. You can start and stop songs, trigger drum fills, switch song parts, and record loops, all while having your hands free to play music. The drum machine includes 50 beats, and it comes with an acoustic drum kit sound, a cajon, which is one of those wooden box percussion things maybe you've seen people use, especially in indie music,
Mm-hmm.
and a metronome. The looper can be used with just the microphone, allowing for a quick and easy session. Per the company that makes this, Kuvalu, you don't need any additional recording equipment, but to avoid feedback, the phone needs to be connected to an external speaker, such as headphones, Bluetooth speaker, or the auxiliary input of a guitar amp, for example. The app also features built-in feedback cancellation to prevent the drum track from leaking into the recorded tracks. And here's something you think, okay, this is pretty cool. This must cost 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks. No. Beats and Loops is available now on Apple's App Store and Google Play for $3.99. Wow.
Yeah, and of course, being able to offer that app just at that price point is
It's wonderful.
but it makes a lot of sense because, like you said in the article, they're simply just reutilizing a lot of the sensors and a lot of the technology that's already in phones, which seems to be almost a theme of today's show, which is how do we, how do we use
Good
things
point.
for other purposes? Which is essentially repurposing. And that seemed to be a good theme for the show. And I gotta say, Ralph, it was a very fun show. We have like less than a minute, so unfortunately we don't have time. If you just want to highlight like the last three stories, and then just kind of like read the headline, and then we'll go ahead and say goodbye.
Sure. So some of the headlines we didn't get to: scientists can 3D print insect-like robots in minutes. It actually has to do with creating flexible exoskeletons like insects have, but for robotics. Oh, that's very cool. Profound implications. The next one is smart. Oh, this is good. You got to check this out. Smart contact lens developed that allows diabetics to monitor their glucose levels through liquid in their eye and warns them of any health emergencies. Blink your eyes and this smart contact lens can alert you if you've got a problem. Oh my God, that's awesome. Freaking awesome. Next one is a couple more COVID-19 stories. There's a robot underdeveloped that will help do the testing faster and safer. That's a fun story. Check that out. And I think I had one more COVID-19 scrolling down here. Here we go. Oh yeah, UC Berkeley scientists spin up a robotic COVID-19 testing lab. So two more stories at the end here that give great hope and promise about technology helping with testing, monitoring, you name it, this COVID thing. We are going to win this war eventually.
Eventually. And of course, until then, we will be there to keep you company. And Ralph, I want to thank you so much for keeping us company. And everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. If you want to find out more, computeramerica.com. Ralph, he has his own website. If you just type in Ralph Bond Wicks, that may be one of the easiest ways into Google, or check out the show notes at computeramerica.com. We'll have those up here just in a short amount of time. Everyone, until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.